just listening to the radio, watching TV, walking in the street, you're getting programmed.
Stewart, I just wanted to tell you about the indigo concept in public schools. What they call it is gifted and talented. And so, of course, every parent is like, of course I want my kid to be gifted and talented.
Right.
So, and my child has been involved with that, and I can't find anything about it that is wonderful. There's nothing wonderful about it all. It's boring, it's mundane, it doesn't teach them anything. It's pure linear. And there's nothing wonderful about it.
And that's a good point. She said that in the schools, instead of course, using a New Age word like indigo, they're calling them special or gifted children.
And talented.
Or talented children. And so, of course, every parent wants their child to be in that program. And what they're really doing is testing to see which children have a capability. And it's all being documented. And even those tests that are given for employment, those personality tests that are all computerized, and you fill out, it's hundreds of questions about your personality, your likes, your dislikes, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes through a computer, and this printout comes out that just point blank tells you what type of personality you have. And they're very accurate. That was created by a man who was involved heavily in mind control and programming and worked for the government. And just about all employment agencies and large corporations are using them. And so I would advise against taking such things because it will label you and it will categorize you. Unfortunately, if you have children in school, at some point they will all be forced to take it. And it will be given in such a way to show the school how to direct them into their classes that they need to take, or what kind of a career they need to have, etc., etc. And that's exactly what will happen. If it comes out that your child has a certain personality, they will say, that child must study these topics only, and must go into that profession. There will be no deviation. Total control. Kind of like how it was in the Middle Ages with the guilds. There was a gold workers and a horseshoe maker and all these. They had apprentices and guilds, and when you went in that was your life forever. You could never go out into anything else. That's what it's going back into.
Stewart, one more thing I was going to
Yes.
At 7th grade, they require the kids to, prestigious colleges contact the school, and they want the kids to take these standardized tests. And under the guise of being a really highly thought of college, all the parents flock to do this. This particular year, my child was in 7th grade, and I refused to have him take the test. I was the only one that didn't have their child take that test. And then they send you these letters, and they want you to participate in this, and this, and this, and this. But you're right, they have you categorized as what you're best at. It's really amazing. And everybody, who wouldn't want their child to go to Johns Hopkins University? I mean, it's stuff like that. Amazing.
Absolutely. That's exactly correct. And what's going to happen in the future is there will no longer be universities and colleges or even high schools as there are now, but there will be specific schools for specific professions that your child will be directed into at an early age, and they will graduate from that school and be in that profession. No deviation from that. They will be determined from these tests and profiles what you're capable of doing, and that's what you will be given to do. Where is that happening now? What?
In Germany, when I grew up, you already pointed to this.
Yes. And where is it happening on a much larger scale, almost forced? China. For example, if a little 3 or 4-year-old child shows a capacity for being a gymnast, that child is taken from its parent. And in China, you're only allowed to have one child. So what do? They say, as a compensation, the parent will go from this hovel into a very nice apartment in the city and be given food coupons, etc., every month as a compensation for taking their child. So some parents look forward to that. And under certain circumstances, especially if the child was a girl, they will let you have another child. Maybe you'll get a boy this time. As you know, in China, girls are not valued at all. And that's why most are given up for adoption or killed, because they're not allowed to have more than one. And if you have a girl first, Not acceptable. Now, all Illuminati families, and if you remember that little pyramid I had drawn for you a while back, and here at the top, that eye of the pyramid, was those 13 families who are the Illuminati. And right underneath that was the Committee of 300, the 300 families that support the 13 families. All of these, all of them, without exception, are 100% programmed. That's just part of what they do. That's their religion, and it is a religion to them. Program the child so there's no deviation from what they must do for the civilization. And all of the rest of here, the masses and all the other layers, and there are 13 layers, by the way, all the other people in the other layers are controlled to some degree or another, whether specifically or subliminally. But these two groups, these two levels, are 100% individually programmed. Not a question. Not a deviation. What happens to people when they are not programmable? What happens to people when they are of a genetic background that is considered not programmable or not easily programmable, and too much dissidence within that group or species or race? What is the result? Out. Yeah, where is this happening? Africa. Most of Africa is being destroyed. Where else?
Prisons?
Well, yes, but prisons are used mostly for experimentation purposes. Latin America, the Aborigine people, a lot of Asian people, all being eliminated to one degree or another because they're not considered programmable. There is a small percentage that is kept for what? Service people, slaves, etc. Absolutely. If you go to a hotel in Australia, who are the housekeepers? Not that many of them. Who is now the housekeepers in Australia?
Vietnamese.
Hispanic people and Vietnamese, etc. Hispanic people in Australia. Yes.
What makes those groups of people not programmed?
Their genetics. The way their genetics are constructed does not allow for mind control programming ways to easily access the mind pattern.
But isn't it like they have their own kind of programming?
Yes, many of them have their own religious programming and mind control, absolutely, within the context of their own culture. But on a global basis, for what is necessary to get to that agenda, no, they're not capable of being programmed in that depth. Which is also why the Illuminati are seeking to eliminate native peoples wherever they find them, like the American Indian, or like the Aborigines, or etc. Why? Because those people have a greater use of the brain capacity. Remember, humans use 10% or less of their brain. But if you don't know that that's what you're supposed to use, you use more of it. If you're not conditioned to using less, you use what you have. If your whole life you're taught to use only up to your elbow and not the rest of your arm, you don't know how to use the rest of your arm. But if nobody told you that, you can use the whole thing. So those people are dangerous, because studying those cultures could make you realize what I'm not doing. So they're being eliminated. In the United States, it started by applying them with alcohol and drugs. American Indians have the highest alcoholism rate in the world. And they're shoved on reservations. They're given some government money to raise some crop on untillable land. And that's the end of that. And all you have to do is drive out west and look at the reservations, and there's not a thing you can do with that land. Nothing. And so they drink. No problem anymore. Yes?
I would say that the Illuminati are all 100% programmed.
Yes.
Now, I Hollywood program than the others.
You're confusing two separate issues now. Okay, the Illuminati had their own programming for their own people, for their own way of life.
Okay, so if they're 100% program, they've got themselves.
Yes, and that's really what we're talking about, is the